What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest legends sits down for what should be a simple chat, only to face the most disrespectful host in late-night television? In just 31 seconds, Jimmy Kimmel managed to destroy his reputation and send Cher storming off his stage in the most explosive walkout in talk show history. The cameras were rolling. The audience was packed. Everything looked perfect for another typical Jimmy Kimmel Live episode. But nothing about this night would be typical. Cher had come on the show to promote her new music, expecting the usual light conversation about her career and upcoming projects. What she got instead was something no guest should ever have to endure. Jimmy started the interview like he always does, with that fake smile plastered across his face. "Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Cher." The audience cheered as Cher walked out, looking absolutely stunning in a flowing black outfit, her signature long hair catching the studio lights perfectly. She waved to the crowd with that warm, genuine smile that has charmed millions for decades. But something felt off right from the start. As Cher settled into her chair, Jimmy's demeanor shifted. The fake smile disappeared, replaced by something much colder. "So Cher," he began, leaning back in his chair like he owned the world, "you're here to talk about your new music. But let's be honest, at your age, shouldn't you be thinking about retirement instead?" The audience went silent. You could literally hear a pin drop in that studio. Cher's face showed complete shock. This wasn't the playful banter she was expecting. This was a direct attack on her age, something no interviewer should ever do to a guest. "Excuse me?" Cher said, her voice steady, but you could tell she was caught completely off guard. "Did you just ask me about retirement because of my age?" Jimmy laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was mean and dismissive. "Come on, Cher. You've been in this business for what, 50 years? 60? Don't you think it's time to let the younger generation take over?" The disrespect was unbelievable. Here was Jimmy Kimmel, a man who built his career on the backs of legendary entertainers like Cher, telling one of the greatest performers of all time that she should quit because she's old. The audience was visibly uncomfortable. Some people were shaking their heads, others looked angry, but Cher handled it with the grace of a true professional. "Jimmy, I came here tonight to talk about my music and connect with my fans. I didn't come here to be insulted about my age. I've been performing since before you were born, and I'm still selling out arenas worldwide." Jimmy's response was even worse. He rolled his eyes and made an exaggerated yawn. Yeah, we get it. You're a legend. But honestly, your recent music sounds like something from the nursing home jukebox." That comment hit like a bomb. The audience gasped audibly. Several people in the front row covered their mouths in shock. This wasn't comedy anymore. This was just cruel. Jimmy Kimmel had crossed a line that no talk show host should ever cross. Cher's composure was incredible under the circumstances. She sat up straighter and looked Jimmy dead in the eyes. "I've sold over 100 million records worldwide. I've won an Oscar, an Emmy, and a Grammy. What exactly have you accomplished besides making fun of people who are actually talented?" The audience started clapping for Cher. They could see what was happening. They could see that their beloved icon was being attacked by someone who should be showing her respect. But Jimmy wasn't done. He was just getting started with his disgusting behavior. "Oh, please," Jimmy said, waving his hand dismissively. "Half those awards were probably given to you out of pity. The music industry felt bad for the old lady still trying to be relevant." The entire studio erupted. The audience was booing Jimmy now. They were actually booing the host of the show. That never happens. But they couldn't help themselves. They were watching one of the most beloved entertainers in history being torn down by a man who should be grateful she even agreed to appear on his show. Cher remained calm, but you could see the fire building in her eyes. "Jimmy, I don't know what your problem is tonight, but this is completely inappropriate. I've been nothing but professional, and you're treating me like garbage on my own appearance." Jimmy leaned forward with that awful smirk. "Your own appearance? This is my show, Cher. You're just a guest here. And frankly, you're not as important as you think you are. Nobody under 40 even knows who you are anymore." That was it. That was the moment everything changed. The moment Jimmy Kimmel revealed his true colors and showed the world what kind of person he really is. The audience was in complete shock. Some people were standing up and shouting at Jimmy. Others looked like they wanted to leave. This was supposed to be entertainment, not a public humiliation of a music legend. Cher took a deep breath, and when she spoke, her voice was strong and clear. "Nobody under 40 knows who I am? Jimmy, I have fans of all ages around the world. My concerts are filled with people from teenagers to grandparents. You clearly don't understand the connection I have with my audience." But Jimmy wasn't listening. He was too busy enjoying his power trip, thinking he was being clever and edgy. Connection with your audience? The only connection you have is with people who remember when dinosaurs walked the earth. The insults kept coming, each one worse than the last. This wasn't an interview anymore. This was a character assassination happening live on television. The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Cher's patience was wearing thin, but she still tried to keep things professional. Jimmy, I don't understand why you're being so hostile. I came here in good faith to have a conversation with you and your audience. Jimmy's response was absolutely shocking. He actually laughed out loud, like the whole thing was one big joke to him. Good faith? Cher, you're desperate for attention. Your career peaked decades ago, and now you're just clinging to relevance like a life raft. The audience was getting louder in their disapproval. People were shouting things like, "Stop it," and "Leave her alone." But Jimmy ignored them completely. He was in his own world, drunk on his own power as the host. Cher's voice remained steady, but you could hear the emotion building. Desperate for attention? Jimmy, I've been invited to perform at the most prestigious venues in the world. I don't need to come on your show for attention. I came here because I thought it would be fun. Fun? Jimmy scoffed. The only fun thing about this interview is watching you pretend you're still 25. Face it, Cher, your time is up. You're yesterday's news wrapped in tomorrow's plastic surgery. That plastic surgery comment was the lowest blow yet. The audience gasped so loudly it echoed through the studio. Several people actually stood up and started walking toward the exits. They couldn't bear to watch this massacre of one of their heroes anymore, but Cher didn't break. She looked Jimmy straight in the eye and said, "You know what, Jimmy? I've faced critics my entire career. I've dealt with people who tried to tear me down when I was starting out, when I was at my peak, and every year since. But I've never sat across from someone with so little class and so much hatred." Jimmy's face twisted into an ugly smile. Hatred? I don't hate you, Cher. I just think you're pathetic. You're like that relative at family gatherings who tells the same stories over and over because they peaked in high school. The comparison was so cruel and unnecessary that even Jimmy's own production crew looked uncomfortable. Camera operators were shaking their heads. The director in the booth was probably having a panic attack watching his host destroy his own show in real time. Cher's response was powerful and dignified. Jimmy, I've never claimed to be perfect. I've made mistakes, I've had failures, and I've learned from them. But I've also brought joy to millions of people around the world. Can you say the same about yourself? Joy? Jimmy practically spat the word. You call that screeching? You do singing? You call those outfits fashion? The only joy you bring is when people realize their own lives aren't as tragic as yours. The studio erupted in boos again. This time they were so loud that Jimmy had to raise his voice to be heard over them. The audience was completely on Cher's side now. They could see what was happening. They were witnessing a bully in action. Cher stood up from her chair. For a moment, everyone thought she was going to walk off right then and there. But instead, she did something incredible. She addressed the audience directly, turning away from Jimmy completely. "I want to apologize to all of you," she said to the crowd. "You came here tonight expecting entertainment, and instead you're watching someone try to humiliate me on live television. You deserve better than this." The audience burst into applause. They were clapping for Cher, supporting her, showing her the love and respect that Jimmy refused to give. But Jimmy couldn't handle being ignored. His ego couldn't take it. "Sit down, Cher," he shouted. "This is my show, and you'll do what I say while you're here." That was it. That was the moment Jimmy showed his true colors completely. He wasn't just being rude anymore. He was being controlling and aggressive. Cher turned back to face him, and the look in her eyes was fire. "Your show?" she said, her voice rising for the first time. "Jimmy, this might be your studio, but that doesn't give you the right to treat people like garbage. I've been in this business longer than you've been alive, and I've never seen such unprofessional behavior from a host." Jimmy stood up too, trying to intimidate her. "Unprofessional? You want to talk about unprofessional? How about showing up to interviews looking like you're headed to a costume party? How about pretending you can still hit notes that disappeared with the Reagan administration?" The Reagan administration comment was so specific and cruel that it felt personal. Like Jimmy had been planning these insults, waiting for the chance to destroy Cher publicly. The audience was horrified. Some people were crying. Others looked angry enough to storm the stage. But Cher held her ground. "Jimmy, I don't know what happened to you to make you so bitter and mean, but I feel sorry for you. I really do. You have this platform, this opportunity to bring joy and laughter to people, and instead, you're using it to tear down someone who's done nothing but try to entertain your audience." Jimmy's face was red with anger now. "Don't you dare feel sorry for me. I'm the one with the successful show. I'm the one people tune in to see. You're just a has-been trying to steal my spotlight." "Steal your spotlight?" Cher laughed, but it wasn't a mean laugh like Jimmy's had been. It was sad, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Jimmy, there's enough room and entertainment for all of us. I'm not here to compete with you. I'm here because your producers asked me to come on and talk about my music." Jimmy wasn't hearing any of it. He was too caught up in his own rage and insecurity. "My producers made a mistake booking you. We should have gotten someone relevant instead. Someone people actually care about seeing." That comment about relevance hit different than the others. Because anyone with eyes could see that the audience cared deeply about seeing Cher. They were hanging on her every word, supporting her through this nightmare, showing her more love and respect than they were showing their own host. Cher looked around at the audience, seeing their faces filled with support and love for her, then back at Jimmy with his twisted smirk. Something shifted in her expression. The patience was gone. The professional courtesy was done. She had reached her breaking point. "You know what, Jimmy?" she said, her voice stronger than it had been all night. "You're right about one thing. Your producers did make a mistake. They made the mistake of thinking you were professional enough to handle having a real entertainer on your show." Jimmy's smirk faltered for just a second, but then it came back even nastier than before. "Real entertainer? Cher, you're like a museum exhibit that someone forgot to put behind glass. You belong in the past, not on my stage." The audience was booing so loudly now that the sound was deafening, but Jimmy kept going, completely oblivious to how badly he was destroying his own reputation. "I mean, seriously, who told you that outfit was appropriate for television? Did you get dressed in the dark?" That attack on her appearance was the final straw. Cher had endured insults about her age, her career, her voice, and her relevance. But going after her appearance was crossing a line that even someone as patient as Cher couldn't ignore. "Jimmy," she said, her voice deadly calm, "I've been insulted by experts. I've been criticized by people with actual talent and intelligence. But I've never had to sit here and listen to someone so small and petty try to make themselves feel important by tearing me down." Jimmy's face went bright red. "Small and petty? I'm the host of this show. I'm the star here. You're just a washed-up singer who can't accept that nobody wants to hear your ancient music anymore." "Ancient music?" Cher stood up again, and this time there was no doubt about what she was going to do. "Jimmy, my music has touched generations of people. My songs have been the soundtrack to people's lives, their weddings, their celebrations, their heartbreaks. What has your show ever done besides make people feel bad about themselves?" Jimmy was losing control completely now. He started yelling, his voice cracking with rage. "My show entertains millions of people every night. My show matters. You're just jealous because you'll never be as successful as me." The audience couldn't believe what they were hearing. Jimmy Kimmel was actually claiming to be more successful than Cher, one of the best-selling artists of all time. People were laughing at him now, not with him. They were laughing at how ridiculous and delusional he sounded. Cher shook her head sadly. "Jimmy, success isn't just about ratings or money. It's about making a positive impact on people's lives. It's about lifting people up, not tearing them down. And right now, you're failing at both." "Failing?" Jimmy screamed. "You want to talk about failing? How about your last album that nobody bought? How about your last movie that nobody saw? You're the failure here, not me." But Cher wasn't listening to his rants anymore. She was done. She reached down and grabbed her purse from beside her chair. The simple action sent a ripple of excitement through the audience. They knew what was coming. They knew they were about to witness television history. "Jimmy," she said, slinging her purse over her shoulder, "I came here tonight with respect for you and your show. I came here ready to have fun and connect with your audience. But you've made it clear that you have no respect for me, for your audience, or for yourself." Jimmy realized what was happening and panicked. "You can't leave. We're in the middle of an interview. I'm not done with you yet." Cher turned to face him one last time, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of decades of experience and wisdom. "You're absolutely right, Jimmy. You're not done. But I am." The audience erupted in cheers and applause. They were cheering for Cher, supporting her decision to leave, showing her the respect that Jimmy had refused to give. But Jimmy couldn't handle it. His ego couldn't take being rejected on his own show. "Fine. Leave. Nobody wants you here anyway. You're embarrassing yourself. This is exactly why nobody respects you anymore." Cher paused at the edge of the stage and looked back at him. "Jimmy, the only person embarrassing themselves tonight is you, and everybody watching knows it." With that, she walked off the stage with her head held high, leaving Jimmy standing there alone, red-faced and furious, while his own audience continued to cheer for the woman he had just driven away. Jimmy tried to regain control, shouting at her retreating figure, "That's right, run away! Just like you always do when things get tough. This is why your career is over." But his words fell on deaf ears. Cher was already backstage, and the audience was still applauding her exit. They had witnessed something incredible. They had seen a true professional handle an impossible situation with grace and dignity, and they had seen a bully exposed for exactly what he was. Jimmy stood there for a few more seconds, looking around at his audience who were still clapping for his departed guest. His face went through a range of emotions: anger, confusion, and finally what looked like the beginning of realization that he had made a terrible mistake. "Well," he said weakly, trying to salvage something from the wreckage, "that was certainly something. I guess some people just can't handle honest conversation." But even Jimmy seemed to know how hollow those words sounded. The damage was done. In 31 seconds of insults and disrespect, he had destroyed his own reputation and given the world a perfect example of how not to treat a guest, especially one as legendary and beloved as Cher. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every uncomfortable second as Jimmy tried to figure out how to end the segment, how to move on from what had just happened, how to explain to his audience why he had just humiliated one of the greatest entertainers of all time on live television. But there was no explaining it away. There was no spinning it. Everyone had seen exactly what happened, and they would never forget it.